Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is, I think we're on day seven, day seven of me sharing testimony. If you are new to me, welcome, welcome. If you're new, make sure that you drop a newbie in the comments so that I can actually say hi to you. I like to say hi to the people and that are new so that I can actually hold on a second here. I'm a little low or I'm a little high and my mic is a little low. So tonight we are going to go carry on from where we've been. If you have not seen the first six, then you probably need to go back and see the first six. This is a journey. I am talking about, I'm sharing my testimony of basically a lot of ministry stuff from 2018 and onwards. Now we're going to talk about 2022 tonight. 2022, at the end of 2021, I closed the ministry. Okay. The reason I closed the ministry was because I felt like the Lord had placed it upon my heart to close the ministry. So that's what I did. 2022, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So this is not going to be really long because I'm trying to keep these testimonials like about a half hour so that it's not too long and they're bite-sized, bite-sized, chewable things, right? So tonight, I'm just going to talk about 2022. A lot of stuff happened in 2022. So we closed the doors of the thrift store in 2021, December. 2022, I started kind of like creating content on social media, like a lot more content. And I wasn't sure what direction we were going to go in. I had a storage unit full of stuff. And when I say full of stuff, full of things that I thought we were going to use going forward, like in this journey, right? So I had that storage unit. Everything went into there at the beginning of January. I also had a garage full of more stuff. And I wasn't sure what we were going to do. The reason I'm talking about this is because you have to understand what actually occurred. And I didn't think I was going to talk about this, but I'm probably going to have to talk about this so you understand the journey. I don't want to go into detail on this, but I will say this, that in the future, there is a possibility of me writing a book about the more personal side of things. I've kind of just talked about the ministry and what we're doing in the ministry and the quick little journey that we've had. So 2022, let me just see if what kind of pictures I have, because I think I took some. I'm not sure. Just give me a minute and let me get in here and look at 2022, because I did save. Oh, 2022? Oh, 2022 to 2024. Okay. I kind of grouped it together. 2022, yeah, I started posting a lot of content so that we could have a social media presence. And we had, I think we were on a lot of platforms at that time, and posting just kind of like scriptures with music and pretty pictures and things of that nature. That's basically what I was focused on in 2022. And there was some personal things going on, and I won't go into details. Like I said, I won't right now. But I wasn't sure what was going on. Okay. So I had 4 children in the house, me and him. And there was some strange things, and I kind of just left it with God, because we don't know, we don't see everything. And in this journey, in this walk of life, God sees it all. So remember this, God sees and God knows, right? We don't see the big picture. And so I didn't know what the plan was for the ministry. The garage was full of stuff. And I said the storage unit was full of stuff. Um, and I let it sit there because I didn't know what the plan was. I didn't have a job. I was not working. Okay. So November rolls around and he, my husband, started going away on work trips. Well, I think it was the year before that he went away on work trips as well. So it wasn't odd for that. Um, I will say this, there was always like a question in the back of my mind. Um, but you see, you leave it with God. There are some situations in life and you have got to trust God. You just got to trust God. And I trusted God. And so those work trips were not work trips. I didn't find out right away. November 2022, I was sitting at my computer and I was stressed out. Like I was really concerned about money. I was concerned because the money that he was giving, there wasn't enough. And I didn't understand what was going on, and I wasn't getting any. There was a couple of situations where I would ask something and I got snapped at, and I got um, which was odd for me, and odd for him to act like that. And there was a couple other things that I noticed when it came to the kids, and I thought, well, that's weird. But I kind of, as a loyal Christian wife, you can call me like naive or whatever. I was like, well, maybe he's going through something. So I just left it alone. But that night when I was sitting at a computer, it was like November the 8th. Yeah, November the 8th, because my mom's birthday was the next day. November the 8th, I felt this really bad headache. I was sitting at my desk on the computer, really stressed out, and my head started to hurt really bad. I didn't feel good. And at the time, my son was 20, he's 23 now, so that was 22. Yeah. So that's what, so he was like 20, I don't know, 21, 20. Walks in the door and I tell him I'm not feeling good. And he looks at me and I said, I'm just gonna go to bed. And it was like 9 o'clock. And I'm not a 9 o'clock bed person. So, and I remember sitting there, standing in the kitchen, talking to him. And I came in the living room and I sat down. And I remember looking at my phone, thinking, how come I don't know these numbers? Why don't I see the numbers? And your brain is telling you that you should be able to see the numbers, right? Like I'm looking at the phone and I can't figure out why I can't understand the numbers on my phone. Let me tell you how scary that is. It was scary. Um, I couldn't think right, and the words were not coming out. And I said to my son, something is wrong. And I didn't know what. When your brain doesn't work the right way at that moment, it is scary. So I told him, I'm just going to go lay down. I'll just go lay down, because I knew something was wrong, but I could not, you're not thinking right. And I laid down, I went to sleep, and he went to his friend and said, his friend was her mom was a nurse. And I woke up the next day and I felt good. And I said to him, I said, I'm okay. And he was like, well, Mom, my friend's, he said her name. He goes, she said you should go to the hospital. Well, I was kind of like, go to the hospital, man. Why? And he was like, Mom, something happened last night and you need to go to the hospital. And I knew he was right, but I was scared. So I went. I didn't tell my husband. He wasn't here. He was not here. Uh, thank you. I never told my husband. Um, my son texted him, and my son said he's on a ladder and he can't come down. And anyways, long story short, there was no text, there was no phone call, there was nothing. Hello, Marie. Um, there was no text, there was no phone calls, there was nothing. I was in a hospital, and my poor kid was my hero. And I laid on that gurney in the hallway, never feeling like so stinking alone. Knowing that you're married, knowing that you're married and he's not around. I knew as I was laying there talking to God, I was like, there's something wrong, something really wrong. It's okay. I'm okay. Telling it is hurtful, but this is part of what I need to share. So I felt really alone. And then they put you on this thing, right? They put this helmet on you and you go through, I guess it's a machine, whatever it's called, the MRI thing. And I was like having this attack, kind of like a panic attack. I don't know what it was. Anyways, I wasn't sure what was happening. And I went in that machine and I came back out. Eventually the whatever that was, like that feeling went away because I just kept praying. And when I came back out of that hospital, they told me there was nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong. Nothing wrong with my head, no damage. They asked me what happened, and I said, well, I couldn't understand numbers and I didn't feel like I could speak right. And they said it sounded like a mini stroke. So they were pretty confident I had a mini stroke that night. And when I came home, all I knew was that I didn't care where he was because I thought that was enough for me. Like I just went through a health thing, and he never texted, he never called the hospital, he didn't show up. It was crickets. And I had figured out about a month before that there was a letter in the mail, and he had actually lost his job, and he pretended going to a job for a month before that. And when I confronted him about losing the job, he was like, how do you know that? What makes you say that? No, he was like, what makes you say that? And I was like, who says that? Who does that? So anyways, we won't go there. I just knew, a lie is a lie when a lie is being told. And I didn't even have to explain anything. So I went for a nap one day. I woke up and all the clothes were in a bag, packed up. And he was gone, just gone. So I didn't know what was really going on until January. November is when I had the mini stroke. January, I was still close to his mom, and she was really apologetic and everything, and it wasn't her fault. But anyways, January, I found out that she actually knew that he had been living with somebody, okay, for months, months, which was just the icing on the cake for me. But I won't go into it because it hurt, but it wasn't like, I don't know how to explain this to you, and you don't know my story, but it wasn't that wasn't the major issue. Believe it or not, that was not the major issue. So anyways, that's, I haven't heard from him, don't want to hear from him. That's where we're going to leave that. One day I might write a book about that, because just because somebody says something doesn't mean that they are. And you can live with somebody and not know really who they are. And that's a fact. You can live with somebody and not really know who they are. And I cannot believe that I can even say that. But so 2022 was basically that drama. Drama is not even the word. And that's why I'm saying I'm not going to go into it in these testimonials. I'm probably going to save it for a book. But 2023, so 2023 began with me knowing the truth. And then I didn't have a job. So I was left with 4 children and no job. And never once has he ever given a dime. Never once. Not one phone call, not one piece of mail. All his phone numbers have been changed multiple times. And I really don't. As far as I'm concerned, we are all better off. We are definitely all better off because there's stuff that I just haven't said anything about to anybody. But my children, my oldest knows, my little ones don't really know, and they don't need to know. But I will probably include that in a book. So that brings us to 2023, and it began the struggle for me and my kids to keep a roof over our heads because I was a homeschooling mom, working on a nonprofit that I didn't make money in, because it was never about the money. So we were creating content, posting content, and not getting any money, not making money, not getting any money. His mother, thank God for her, she actually kept us afloat for quite a bit. And then I started doing some like some delivery stuff, you know what that is, dashing and stuff. So I did that. But I didn't know what we were going to do with the ministry because I was so focused on, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I got kids to look after. I got 4 kids and it's just me and I didn't know what to do. So 2003 was a hot mess. But at the end of 2003 is when I started. 2003 September, I think it was, God started telling me, and my son came to me one day and he said, "What is the one thing that you're not doing that God told you to do?" And I laughed, and then I wasn't laughing. And I go, "Yeah, what?" And he goes, "Well, what is that one thing that you're supposed to do and you're not doing?" I go, if you're going to talk to me about preaching and teaching again. And he was serious. And I was like, "No, I can't. No." And that was my initial response was, "No, I can't. I just no." And over the years, I can tell you this, over the years between 2000 and probably 2019, maybe 2020, all the way up to 23. Little hints were dropped, little hints. And a friend of mine, she was like, "So are you going to be the one that preaches?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? No." And my son would say stuff. And then my husband said stuff. And I just kind of shrugged all that stuff off as if like, you guys are crazy. Can't be talking to me. I'm not doing that. And little did I know that it was the Lord kind of like just dropping little tidbits, little, okay, here's a hint, you're going to teach, you're going to preach. And I can tell you this, that it's been in the making for a really long time because in 2000 and probably 14, 15, the pastor of a church looked at me and he said, would you share a message? And I was like, share a message? And I was like, yeah, okay. And I did. I shared a message. And then he came up to me after and asked me if I would share a message, but I would put a little bit of a twist on it the way that he wanted it done. And I was like, "No, I'm sorry." I said, "That's the first time and last time I will do that. for you. I am not going to like do the teaching. I said, I'm not going to do that again. Um, because you can't tell somebody what to preach and teach. Okay, that's nowhere in the Bible does it say that you can tell another person what to preach or teach. And my focus and that message was, it was a Sunday school message in front of the whole church, a small church. And I did like a Sunday school lesson for kids, because I've always been about kids and I've always been about teenagers for one. Um, I remember going through a long time ago in my 20s, and I don't know why, but it's always been there. And I went to do this fostering. And if you know anything about fostering children, I was a single mom and I was looking at trying to give a kid a place to live, because my heart just goes out to kids. And when I was sitting going through these classes about fostering, um, and I was like 20, oh my goodness, I think I only had one child at the time, or maybe two. So I could have been 25, 20, late 20s, early 25 to 25 to 30. And I remember being in that classroom because we had to go through schooling to actually become a foster parent. And I remember going through that classroom, looking at a table full of adults. And the one thing that always shocked me was this all these adults didn't want the teenagers. And I was like, wow. So you're going to leave teenagers are just teenagers. Like, how can they and now this is in Canada. I don't know what it's like in the States. I live in the States now, but in Canada, and you're talking like 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago when I did that. Um, and I think they were 16. And if they hadn't been in the system by 16, then they were out. Like if they came to that, if they tried to get any kind of help after 16 and they were never in the system, they couldn't get help. A 16-year-old, you know what happens to a 16-year-old who can't get any help? They're on the streets. Like what is wrong with this? Anyway, nobody wanted the teenagers. They all wanted like 6 to 12, if I remember right. It was like this group of kids and they all wanted the 6 to 12. Well, what about the newborns to the 5-year-olds? I was like, I'll take the newborns to the 5-year-olds. Like I wanted the ones that nobody else wanted. I wanted the teens. I wanted the ones that were little. But at the end of it all, they were like, we're going to give money for this and that. And it wasn't about the money ever. It's never been about money for me. Never, ever, ever in my life. But when they said that I would be able to take the kid on vacation, and I was like, wait a minute, I can't even take my own on vacation. How am I going to take somebody else? And then my kids, I can't even take my own kids. So that closed the door for me. I was like, no, I can't do that right now. As a single mom with kids, like I can't remember if I had one or two at that time, but I was like, no, that door closed. So anyways, back to I've always, it's like God kind of preps you along the way in life to do whatever it is that he wants you to do. And he has a plan for every single one of us, there is a plan. It might not be in ministry, but there's a plan for your life. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for all the hearts. I appreciate you. So throughout my time, I was like, wow, God really does want me to preach and teach. I haven't got a clue how to do that. I don't know anything about that. Like, yeah, I've sat in church. Yeah, I believe in God. Yeah, I read my Bible. But you're telling me to preach and teach? All I kept hearing was preach or teach or both. Like, and I would tell my son, and my son was like 20 something. And he was like, Mom, you got to do it. You got to do it. And he was driving me crazy, like absolutely driving me crazy. And I was like, I don't want to. Like the whole thing scared me. But when you get to that point where you're like, I just got to follow God. You know what? I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know why. And this will make sense to you. If you have never seen or heard anything about me, then you need to go back on that other place because you're not supposed to say it. You need to go on that other place because all of them are on there um, in a playlist. Okay. Oh, you guys are right there. Okay. So you can go on there and listen, and then it'll all make sense to you a little bit more anyways. So I started in 2023. I actually started doing exactly what God said. Those beginning messages, I'm going to tell you, were probably horrible, but I did it in obedience because when we say we love Jesus, we're really going to do what we feel like God places on our hearts, even if it takes us like months or years to get there. As long as you get there, that is what's important. So I started I was scared. I still get nervous about it, but not like I did in the beginning. And started studying the Bible. I didn't even know how to talk about, uh, sit my kids in the living room. And here's another funny thing. Um, so I started preaching and teaching online. Okay. I made a website in 2018, but the website changed over time from what we were doing. Right. And I made the website and changed the website and all that stuff. But in September 2023, I think we had our first church service in October 2023 in my living room. Um, and I had the podium. Well, I tried to get rid of the podium in 2023 in like August. I have all these, and they're still in my closet. Okay. I have a ton and now, man, that just reminded me of something else. I have a huge box full of these kids like pamphlet things. Um, that's a whole lot. I'm not even sure what that is, live life, but yeah, that's quite something to say. um, so so I in the hallway I have this huge box full of like Bible story kind of activity books, and I phoned a friend of mine who had a church, and her church, well, hers and her husband's. Her husband, like, she played piano and he preached, and I went to their church once. Um, before I lost my truck. Anyways, so we went down there, went to their church once. My truck broke down, no truck, no vehicle now. And it's been that way ever since. Well, no, since 2024. So I went to them in 2024. So we went to their church, and I was like, man, you guys need to come get this. Do you want a podium? I have all these books. You can take all these books. You can take the podium. You can take it all. Well, she was going to take it all. And then she didn't show up one time. And then something else happened again. And I was like, I don't understand this. And I tried to get rid of it, and it didn't go anywhere. And now I'm standing at it every single Sunday and every single Wednesday, preaching and teaching the word of God. So no matter what I did, I couldn't, like, man, it is so strange. It is so strange to me to talk about stuff that you've never talked about. Um, and then you're like, wow, that was God. Because I tried to get rid of it. I was like, no, just take it. Just take it. She was going to come take this thing. And she didn't. Um, oh, sorry. I didn't understand. Thank you. I appreciate you. Um, so I tried to get rid of that big wooden thing, but it's here. It's in my living room right now. And So that began the preaching and the teaching to my kids. And my son has been the biggest supporter of me doing that against all odds, because a lot of people are like, women can't preach, women can't do this. But if you go back in the Bible, who was one of the first people to go and tell? Mary. She was the one that went running around talking about Jesus. And then you got the woman by the well, another woman. She's got to go and tell everybody in the city. She had to go back and tell everybody in the town. So these people that think that women are supposed to be quiet in the church don't even know what that verse means. They have no idea. It's not about, you can't take and read the Bible. This is one thing that I understand. You can't take and read the Bible and think that that applies to us today in that same manner, because the men and the women sat on different sides in the church back at that time period. So women couldn't be hooting and hollering across the way. Hey, what does that mean? They can't do that. Like it was a different time period. The Bible was a different time period. Now, some of the things they still apply, but that's not the same thing. So we're not talking about women preaching and teaching. That's not what that verse is about. That's about us asking our husbands, instead of hooting and hollering across the way, we're supposed to sit there, wait till we get home, and then ask them questions, because us women, we can talk. And so it was a different time period. And when we read the Bible, we've got to understand what was happening in that time period. Women don't dress like men or whatever. Um, that is funny. Thank you. Okay. So, so I find that it is there's opposition to women that preach or teach. And I get it. I understand it, but it doesn't make it right. Just because you oppose it doesn't make it right. And there are plenty of, and I would encourage any woman on the face of the earth, if God has told you to preach or teach, then girlfriend, you need to go do that. And God will give you what you need at the time that you need it, because that's Bible. So yes, I was scared. I was hesitant. I was the one that was like, man, what do I do? I don't know. And now I study like I've never studied before. And I share, and that's where we're at. So we're at 220. That was 2023. I started. And then my son kept bugging me, Mom, you should do Wednesday nights. And I was like, why? No. And finally I gave in to Wednesday nights. So then I started preaching Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights. And that's what we do. And we've been doing it for a year and a half now, a year and a half. Especially on that platform. Okay. We did start doing it here on this platform too, but this one's a little bit more, so that's what we've been doing. And in 2024, okay, and I think my time is almost up. 2024, we were doing the dash, okay, delivering food. That was my income. And so I would bring my second oldest with me, and then I would bring my youngest, because my youngest was 3. Oh my goodness. Was he 3? He was 3, I think. Yeah, 3 or 4. It just turned 4 maybe. Anyways, he was itty bitty. So we would take him with us. I would sit in the car with him. My son would do like running in and dropping off food or whatever. And one day we were talking in the car, and I said something because I had passed by a building. And so this is going back. I thought, and sometimes you get things wrong, but I thought that the Lord had placed this one building on my heart, and it was downtown, like in our area. But the place was really old and falling apart. Okay. It's like a historical building. But I saw the land behind it. And I was like, oh, you know what we could do with that? Do you know what we could do with this? And it's kind of like you see it before it's there. And I was like, what we could do with this? We could actually have like a Christmas thing, and then we could bring people into it and have Jesus in there somehow, like the story about Jesus's birth or something, but have them drawn in because of the lights and make it fun and all this stuff, but it be about Jesus, because I'm all about Jesus. That's it first and foremost. So I thought the land back there was awesome. It was probably, my son thought it was only about an acre, but I'm thinking it was more like 2, but I could be wrong. Anyways, so I thought that building, maybe we would get the building. And then I went to another building, and this is just between 2022 and 2024. Okay, 2022 to 2024, after I had closed the thrift store. 2022 to 24. And then I went and checked out this other building, and it was like an old Y. And I walked into the building, looked around, looked at everything, and I was like, yeah, this is really good, but this is not it. This is not it. And I said I needed like a big warehouse, kind of like big warehouse place so I could store stuff. And don't ask me where this stuff comes from, because I really couldn't tell you. All I can tell you is that it's like this drop. Like it's like this, and that's how I kind of explain it to kids. Like it's like a thought that drops in your spirit, and you don't know what it means. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. And when we were driving around, and my husband had already like taken his clothes and left us. And my son and I were driving around, and I said to him, I said, I don't know how we got talking about it. And I was like, yeah, you know what? A place where people could work out, moms could drop kids off, and it'd be all about Jesus. And he was like, yeah. And I said, yeah, kind of like a Y. And he was like, yeah, what would you name it? And I was like, I don't know. And we started like thinking, and I go, we need to pray. We need to pray and ask the Lord, because it would be like a facility where people could work out. And one of the biggest problems that I have seen and that I personally have had is being able to exercise and have kids. Like have kids, I'm a single mom. So having your kids, and there is not even one place in this whole place that we live that babysits kids. None. I come from a place where I used to drop my kids off there, and they would be there for a couple hours in the afternoon, getting exercise, hanging out with other homeschoolers. And we don't have anything like that here, like nothing at all. And I said to him, and it kind of reminded me of the thrift, because when you walked into our thrift store, you wouldn't expect it unless, well, maybe from the outside, it said Cross House Thrift. So you got a cross and a house together, and you kind of think, yeah, there's probably something to do with Jesus in there, or God. And then when they'd walk through that door, they would hear preaching, they would hear teaching, they would hear singing, they would hear something to do with the gospel. So we were talking about having a facility. It would have to be a brand new facility, brand new. And I said to him, well, I got it. I think I had it in my head, and I didn't say anything to him, because the thought that popped in my head was The Rock. Well, we know who The Rock is. And I was like, not The Rock as in Jesus. We're talking about the other Rock, the actor, The Rock. And I was like, yeah, would that be good? The Rock? And then I thought it, and my son, like almost like right away, he goes, well, what about The Rock? And I started laughing, and I said, yes, that's it. You just said it, and I was thinking it, but I didn't say it because I was processing it in my head. And I go, yeah, that's it. It's called The Rock. So that brings us up to 2025. Okay. So the conception of the facility was put there last year. But well, no, kind of probably before that, but really like cemented last year. And I was like, are we really going to do this, Lord? Is this something that's really going to happen? And so here's the thing. This is how I look at this stuff. Um, the worst thing that happens is it doesn't happen at all. That's what the worst thing is. It doesn't happen at all. Now, I'll never forget this. This guy walked into my thrift store because I was talking about that building down in the downtown city. Actually, we started looking at that before I closed the thrift store. That's right. And this guy walked in there, and I can't remember his name. It's probably in my phone, but he walked into the thrift store because I asked somebody about um I can't remember how I said it. I wanted to get a building downtown, but I ain't got no money. I have no money for that. Okay. I'm just telling you as it is. No money for that. Um, but I believe in a big God. So I don't care about whether I have money or not. It's not about me. It's either God's going to do it or he's not going to do it. And I seen him put on that event and have 400 to 500 people show up to an event that I never paid for. All I did was put it together, like put the pieces together. And I seen that and I'll never forget it. And I've seen God do some pretty crazy things, and it's not me. I don't take the credit for it. So this guy walks in my store, and he knew somebody that I knew, and he says, so what is it that you want to do? And I was telling him, I said, well, I was kind of thinking of getting this building down there. And he goes, well, what do you do for money? And I was like, well, at the time my husband worked, right? And the thrift store really didn't, it was mine. It was mine. Um, and I told you there's a reason why things were they were the way they were. But so I said, I have the thrift store. And he was like, oh. And I go, and we just put on this awesome event, and it was huge and it was amazing. And he was like, well, what did he say to me? He said something like, well, you're a nobody. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, but nobody's ever heard of you. Nobody's ever, you don't know anybody. Who do you know? I think he was asking me, who do you know? And I was like, nobody. And he was just almost like in shock or something. My son laughs about it because he was like, well, mom, you are a nobody and you just show up and something happened. And I was like, it's not me. And he was like, yeah, but the guy's trying to figure it out. So he came in there, I talked to him, and nothing came out of that conversation. But let me tell you something. It went to show me that people, and I know God uses people a lot. God uses people, right? Um, but when he stood there and said to me that I was a nobody, I was like, well, you're right, but I know a somebody. And like, it wasn't about, in his mind, it was like you have to be connected in order to do something. And in my mind, I just got to be connected to him because he's the one that brings the help. I seen it. He was the one that brought the people. He was the one that brought the help at the event. I didn't have volunteers. I had nobody. We went to a church. Nobody from there. I think one person said that they would come and maybe help. The church was about a half hour away, a small church. But I was telling them that we were doing this event, and we didn't have volunteers from even our own church at the time. I think maybe one person, the pastor was going somewhere else. He was already involved in something else. But anyways, I'll never forget it because I thought, wow, he was like thinking you need to be connected to a bunch of people in order to do something. And that's really not, I know we think with our heads, but then that limits God. That's what that does. It limits God. So yeah, I when my son and I were sitting in that truck talking about it, I thought, you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to start praying. We're going to start walking in that direction. And so now that everything is kind of like calmed down, like for 2 years, I have not talked to that man, um, nor heard from that man, thank goodness, because I have absolutely nothing. It's kind of like a weight is gone off of my shoulders, and I don't have to keep looking over my back, which is an awful thing to say or to go through. But um, it's like when you're in a relationship and you have to be looking over your shoulder to make sure that nothing's coming at you. And I'm not saying in a physical way, but in a kind of like a, well, yeah, they're not in the way that you think. Um, but I had to be on guard all the time and be aware. And I'm not saying because of physical, not like that. But anyways, so I needed some time. I needed some time to yeah, to just carry on. So now we're sitting here and I'm doing what I'm told to do, preaching, teaching, and I told my son I created a picture of what I think that this place is going to look like. We don't have the money to do it. And I'm just bringing you along on this journey. And I figure the worst thing that happens is it doesn't happen at all. And then so what? So, but what happens if it does happen? Do you know the kind of testimony of God doing something when you think it's impossible? Do you understand? Like when God tells you to do something, I just want to encourage you to do it. Just I don't care what it is, just do it. And if you're like you're hesitant, you're not sure how, you don't know, you don't have the money, I've been there. I can tell you this, the worst case scenario is nothing happens. And that's how I got to the part at the event, and it was 2 weeks out and I was bawling my eyes out sitting at the desk thinking, well, God, now I'm either going to look like a real clown or I don't know what. There's flyers out there saying this event's going to happen and there is no money. Like I didn't have enough money. I raised a certain amount of money, but I didn't have enough money. And then I remember sitting there thinking in my head, well, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is nothing happens. So I kind of put that in my head and I was like, well, worst case, it just doesn't happen. And I had to kind of like settle that in my spirit. Okay, you know what? If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And then boom, it happened. And it happened and I will never forget it. My children will never forget it. If you did not hear that testimonial, you got to go back and I would encourage you to go and listen because that was God. That was God from beginning, God to end. And don't ask me why God makes us wait till the last minute. But sometimes you can be in a situation and you can be like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And it feels like the last minute. Even if he's late, in your opinion, he's still on time. You know, like Lazarus, everybody, he's late, he's late, he's late. He's been dead for 4 days. Is it 4 days? I think it was 4 days. And then God shows up, right? I think it was 4 days. Wasn't Lazarus 4 days? I think Lazarus was 4 days. Let me see if I can find out fast. I think it was 4 days. Yeah, 4 days, right? Yeah, 4 days. Okay. So everybody was like, it's late, he's dead 4 days. Jesus shows up and what happens? He's raised from the dead. So even if you think that God's too late, he's never late. He's always on time. There's a reason. There's a reason why. So I don't care what it is that you need, what it is where you're at. I just want to encourage you today that just believe, just trust. I know it sounds like so easy. No, you don't understand. I do. I do. I can tell you, I rest assured. I understand it. It's not easy. It's frustrating. It's scary. It's hard. It's trying. But when you come through that other side and you can stand, I can stand back and I can tell you this. That was the Lord. I've seen the Lord work over and over and over despite me. It has nothing to do with me. I didn't have money to start that store. I didn't have money to start that event. I didn't have money to do I didn't have money for any of it. It was not in me. It was nothing that I did. It was all what he did. It's him that does this. It's him that does the work. We can't take the credit for it because it's not us. Like I didn't have the money. So I can't say, yeah, I did it. I didn't do anything. So in this next project going forward, and I've spoke for way too long, I will show you guys on this is day 7. Yeah, day 7. So day 8, shall we do a day 8? We'll do a day 8. And then that's it. I'm going to close off the testimony and journey playlist. It'll be day 8 and that'll be it. I'll just bring you right up to where we are right now. And I'll show you a picture on the next one of actually what I see and the dream that I had, because I can't even believe I'm sharing this right now. Like, I can't even believe that I'm doing this right now. And I will tell you this, the worst thing that can happen is nothing happens. And then what? What's the best thing that can happen? That we see God make an impact in a city, and then who knows what could happen after that? Because when people are taken by surprise a little bit, I think it's good. I think that them walking into something, thinking it's something else, and then they're presented the gospel day after day after day after day. Because you know what happens when people go to like a gym? They show up day after day after day after day. And if you're presented the gospel every time you walk in that front door, you know what happens? You can ignore it. You can walk past it, but I don't know, maybe you'll still hear it. Maybe you'll still hear the songs. Maybe you still hear the something, because that's what I'm believing. I'm going to start praying about it. And I would invite anybody and everybody to join me on day 8. I'm going to jump off of here right now because I talked way too long. But it is important for you to understand where we came from to where we're going. And then at least you can say, okay, I know, I saw. And if you have not been on our website, go check it out. And see, and just kind of like get up to date and know what we're doing, because it is a journey. It is something that, when you can see from the beginning to the end, which is what I'm praying about, it'll make an impact in your life and in your faith when you can see from beginning to end. And that's why I'm stepping out on a limb and doing it, not for me, for the benefit of the people, because I should have done this before. I didn't even understand the impact of sharing. I didn't understand the impact of taking pictures and having pictures. And like the other night, I actually have news articles that I didn't even know would be an impact 5 years later. 5 years later. 5 years later. Actually, there's from 2019, I think he came 3 or 4 times. And anyways, that was the news guy. So there's articles, there's pictures, there's God knows what he's doing. Anyways, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate you. God bless you. And today's Thursday. I'll come back tomorrow night for day number 8. And then after that, I'm just going to start to do whatever God places on my heart. I am going to go live more, not with the preaching and teaching like as of Sunday and Wednesday. That's going to stay the same. But throughout the week, I'm just going to pop on and kind of hang out and get to know everybody. So thank you for the follow, Maria. I appreciate you. Guys, have a God bless night. And I will be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m.